Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd Podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. You know, I thought Harbaugh was going to have, there were going to be more fireworks with the Chargers. I did think they got a couple of really interesting pieces, a couple small school guys. But I think by and large, the Joe Alt pick was interesting because they have a left tackle, though Slater had an injury. And Alt's kind of he's an athlete. He was a high school basketball player. He's moved around. He's a very good athlete.
You see the pictures after we got off of him sitting with his family, how massive that human being is?
So it's one of those things where I never bought into them taking a wide receiver. I just didn't buy it. And everybody's mock draft had them at receiver. And I'm thinking, that's just not what they're not going to get some skinny kid from LSU so I mean, to me, the pick made sense, but I didn't think the Chargers had that many fireworks. I thought they did just basic stuff, played into Jim. You know, I think they got a linebacker, if I recall, from the Michigan.
Yeah,
but I didn't think there was a ton of fireworks with the Chargers.
You know what's funny is most people up until the last couple of weeks, when I think a lot of people around the NFL, like, Jim's not taking a wide receiver, guys. So we can stop talking about that. But even the second pick in Ladd McConkey, you know, a lot of people have been like, go get Herbert, go trade up and get a Xavier Worthy, or, you know, get Keon Coleman, the guy the Bills took. And he took Ladd McConkey, you know, who's going to end up, to me, being more Edelman, Wes Welker, can play right in the slot receiver. Jim's not into this sexy football. He's not trying to be, you know, Lane Kiffin or Lincoln Riley. That's not the way he coaches. He coaches like he's prepared to play Mike Ditka and Joe Gibbs back in 1988. And that's the way that's been successful up until him 3 months ago when he won the national championship. Fundamentally, and I think when he said, we view offensive linemen as weapons, he's not making he's being serious as a heart attack because he truly believes that. So Justin Herbert, like I'm actually a little shocked that they didn't get Blake Corum. I'm pissed the Rams did. I love that pick. But it's just, he's going to, the football is going to look no different than if you pull up Stanford year one in 2008. It's going to look the exact same. And it looked the same at the 49ers early on in Michigan. He changed for a minute. Remember when he hired Gaddis, the spread guy from Alabama, and he hated it. He hated it. And then who became his right-hand man? Sharon Moore. What's he? An O-line coach. And that guy became the head. Those are the people he likes. You see these videos coming out of him at the trailer park. It was not the trailer park, but, you know, where he lived, right with Greg Roman. What do they talk about? Running game, offensive linemen. They're all that hybrid of the Ravens, of him. They're all interconnected. And I'm just, honestly, if you would have told me he would have drafted all offensive and defensive linemen, those were the only picks, no wide receivers, 2 weeks ago, I would have believed you. I mean, that's not how it played out, but he thinks he can win. If he's winning at that group, he can figure the rest out through, I would say, psychological and physical warfare, because he wants to shove you around. And let's face it, most teams in the NFL, you know, when you look at, like, once we get to the Final Four, the Final Eight, it's a lot of physical teams. Yeah. And the soft teams, some teams that can score, they got no shot. They got no shot. And you look at the Final Four, who was it? It was the Niners. It was the Ravens. It was the Chiefs. What have the Lions become under Dan Campbell? Dan Campbell's got a little Jim Harbaugh in him. Yeah. Right? And I would say they throw it a little more than Jim, but that's part of it's their weapons. St. Brown's a fantastic player. But it starts with the offensive and defensive lines with them, and that's where they've invested the last couple of years. Well, even St. Brown. Jim would love St. Brown. So would Kyle Shanahan. He's their type, breaks tackles. He's not some sexy outside wide receiver, despite his stats.
Well, this is what the Rams have done the last 2 years. O-line. They paid 2 guards. I mean, the Rams said, we're going to pay guards. And their receivers, Puka breaks tackles. Cooper Kupp breaks tackles. I think, you know, it's funny. People tend to think offensive coaches are clever and they want finesse. But McVay changed his offense to more power running. That's why Corum was so valuable. They needed Kyron Williams. They needed a backup. They invested in interior O-line. Shanahan likes physical football. Harbaugh likes physical football. Andy Reid is a little, he can dance around. He's a little bit, I almost put him in just a different class. It's like there are certain people in every sport that just don't, like, Like
But think
Otani
about
pitches and hits.
when they pivoted off Tyreek Hill. What did they do? They drafted McDuffie and Karlaftis with their 2 picks right away. So he's invested heavily on that side of the ball this year. Xavier Worthy, I think, was too hard for them to pass up with the speed. But I'm with you.
So I went, and it was interesting. I went and looked at all my divisions. So we're basically through it now. We have new coaches, we have free agency, staffs are all filled out. We have the draft, and I'll just do the first and last place teams, and stop me.
This is what you think coming up, or this was based on last year?
This season I have Buffalo first, New England last.
Yes.
Baltimore first, Cleveland last. Cleveland had a weird draft.
Cincy could be a wild card there if Burrow's healthy.
Yeah, I put them second. Kansas City first, Raiders last. Tough division. Houston first, Tennessee's an easy last. Philly first. I have Giants last.
I'm with it.
Detroit first, Minnesota last, though it's close. Atlanta first, New Orleans last, or Carolina, kind of question mark. I have the Rams first, and I have Seattle last. I think the Rams I thought they really nailed their first 4 picks. I thought yeah. Is anything, so we can argue about the second and third teams, but any of those first and last you would push back on?
Yeah, let's talk about McVay, because I thought he's a good example what Kyle and Andy and these offensive coaches have invested in physical players because they know that they can scheme guys open. Yep. And he invests his first pick in Verse, who's been viewed as a first rounder this whole year.
They loved him. I heard a month ago they loved him.
This second round pick, one of the guy, when I started at Fresno State, we had a student assistant who has worked his way up, and he's been with Oregon State. He's been the GM for Florida State for like the last 3 years. And he's Derek Ray. He's, if we talked about college GMs like we do NFL GMs, look at his draft. Look how many guys at Florida State were just picked. He's done a great job working hand in hand with Norvell. I said, what, this Braden Fisk, tell me about him. He said, think Max Crosby, but inside. So their first 2 picks, we know that's how Verse kind of plays power. That's what this guy plays. So you're never going to replace Aaron Donald, but they go back-to-back picks basically in 15, 20 pick, because they traded up. They got Fisk in the top 40. So they invest immediately, and then they get Blake Corum, who, if he's healthy, we've seen how this guy was the heartbeat of one of the better college football programs we've seen over the last 20 years. Yeah. This is like Jim Harbaugh's favorite player since Frank Gore. So I think the gap shrunk a little bit, and I think Kyle Shanahan showed you something drafting that wide receiver in the first round. Deebo Samuel could not get open in the Super Bowl. He can't run routes. And I'm not trying to talk shit about Deebo. I love him. A lot of stuff he does in football, I admire a lot, the physicality, the ability to make plays, but he is limited as a wide receiver. He can't get open. And I think Kyle was tired of it. And it's not, at this point in time, it's not going to change. He kind of is what it is. So maybe Deebo moving forward, you're going to be on this new kickoff return guy, and you'll kind of come in with McCaffrey in the backfield, but we need to have wide receivers like Ayuk who can run routes. Right. And because look at the Rams, they got a bunch of guys that can run routes. I can't scheme up every single play. We got guys on defense, we got guys on offense, but that they drafted Pearsall, that clearly was something that rattled Shanahan, just like McVay. We need to be even more physical if we're going to get over that hump against all these great offenses, and they double down. So I think those 2 teams, right there with the Lions, right there with the Packers, right there with the Eagles. It's pretty clear with the NFC who the cream of the crop is, right? Yeah, and I also think you have to take this into consideration is Deebo, McCaffrey's had injuries in his career, Trent, Kittle. You can't have your 4 top guys all feel like they're older than their age. If you have, Ayuk is a kid, right? He's just moving into his prime. If you're going to move off, and next year they have to address left tackle because Trent is a wall.